Hello. Hello. Hello, faceless internet people. It's always so weird starting these things. It's so abstract. And there were more people in the room a minute ago, and then the number just dropped by half for some reason. I don't know what's going on. This stuff is all a mystery. The white balance on my screen versus on YouTube looks different. Who knows what's happening? This is a very complicated world we live in. Trying to do these live streams, it's very complicated. Very, very complicated. Hello, Marcus from Berlin. Where's everyone else listening in, watching in from? We'll wait a few more minutes for other folks to sneak in. Hey, Minnow. It was so beautiful today here in Japan. It's like finally entering into the post-summer, no humidity, but still like t-shirt and sandals weather season, which is great. New York, Kyoto, Netherlands, nice. Look at the Zurich. We got the Europeans today. It's a European friendly time. Sweet. Yeah, it's kind of tricky because the special projects crew is so Turkey is fantastic. It is so international. And it's like someone is going to have to get up early or stay up late no matter what. And this is kind of the time zone that catches the most people, I think. It's a little tough for Australians. It starts to get late, but for everyone else, well, Hawaiians got it tough. I think it's like 3 a.m. And then Californians also have it kind of tough. West Coasters. Sorry about that, West Coasters. You get the kind of bad end of the time zone stick. So, okay, let's get going. This will be archived anyway, so if folks want to watch afterwards, they can watch afterwards. That's the beauty of YouTube. So, very informal, very simple thing we're doing here tonight. We're going to turn the shop on. So we're going to make it so people can buy the book. The 3rd edition is printed, wrapped. It's at the distributor. The distributor's already, I think, actually bundled up a couple hundred copies in anticipation of kind of a sales bump. So it's ready. We can turn it on. I like to not go to sales until pretty certain everything is set. That's one of my rules. Last year, that was really stressful, launching the 1st edition before we had a lot of things. Before a lot of things were like printing wasn't done, and logistics were not set up, and that was a big black hole. And somehow it worked out. That was not without incredible amounts of stress. So to mitigate that, I find with these projects, it's all set. You can turn this thing on, and tomorrow's a national holiday in Japan, so stuff won't start shipping tomorrow. I kind of forgot about that, but it will start shipping on Tuesday, and books ordered basically in the next 2 days will start arriving Wednesday, Thursday in countries around the world. So I feel like that makes me feel comfortable. So we'll turn the shop on. I'm going to send out the yearly email. I have that queued up. I'm just going to hit send in Campaign Monitor, get that yearly email out to folks, and when I say yearly email, the yearly members email with the updated discount code in it, so folks can grab it. I don't think this is going to sell out immediately. We do have 680 people on the wait list, so it's not nothing. It's a thing. It's a thing. There's people there. But I don't think it's going to just instantly sell out. But I do want to give everyone who's a member the discount immediately, and give everyone the option to go grab it. If you want to get another copy or get your first copy or get a present or something like that, because I do think it'll probably be done by the end of the year. This edition, it's 1,000 copies in this 3rd edition. So we'll send out that email. We'll compare editions. We'll do a little comparison. That'll be good for the archives to have that up there. And I'll show you the new boxes that we had made, talk about box issues, box logistics. You can do a Q&A, ask questions anytime you want. Throw a question in the chat. I've got the chat kind of hanging out over here next to the camera, and I will be peeking in there. Linda from Santa Monica. Whoa, thank you for getting up. And then actually we have documentary footage of production. I'm kind of tempted to do that a little earlier. Why don't we, or maybe that's like the dessert. Anyway, we'll see how we feel. So let's turn the shop on. That's number 1 on the to-do list. I got my things to-do list here. Here's the shop. It's a coming soon thing. I love this. The thing I spend the most money on, the thing I pay the most, one of my biggest expenses is campaign monitor. And this is like the best design you can do with campaign monitor. Guys, what are you doing at that company? MailChimp just sold for $40 trillion. Get it together, campaign monitor. So right now, this page, there's a bunch of stuff that's like kind of even broken on it. So let's turn this thing on. And to turn this on, I've got to go, hold on a second here. I've got to go and get Microsoft Edge. Where's this guy? This guy. We got this thing loaded. All right, I got it in this other window here. So, 3rd edition, we got to remove this thing. And then I think if I save this, I'm using Craig Starter's bizarro, weird background metadata. And I think if I reload this, it's no longer coming soon. It is a book. Yay. And it can be selected and it can be added. That's good. Those are good things. Great. So it is, it's live. It is no longer a coming soon thing. It is a real thing. So that's exciting. Okay, great. To-do number 1 done. Turn the shop on. It is turned on. Now we got to send the yearly email. This is very exciting stuff. I know. It's let's see. I got it all queued up already. Anyone who's a yearly member is going to get this email right now. It's out. All right. Yearly email sent out. This is the fun logistics of running your own publishing company. So, okay, new editions up, available for purchase. It's good. And now we can compare editions. I think someone just asked a question. Yeah, so Varun says, I wish the 2nd edition had the binding that could be laid out flat. Isn't that something in the 3rd edition? And then someone without a name says, heck, hi Craig, how is 3rd edition different from the 1st, which I have? Well, we're going to look at all the editions. We're going to do an all edition peek with our magic overhead edition cam. This is very exciting. Edition cam. Sweet. Emails are out and arriving. That's exciting. So let's go through these editions. I guess we can let's do the unboxing of this like 3rd edition first. So here's the 1st and 2nd edition. We'll put them over there for now. This is the new box design situation with actually there's some hilarious things I will talk about related to this box, producing these boxes. It was not without its issues, but those are issues that I think are kind of worth talking about a little bit. They're kind of funny. So here it is, new box. It's a little bit bulkier, but that's okay. And then the book is inside here, and 3rd edition books are all wrapped like this. So there's a few things that we wanted to do in this edition. One was to get away from wrapping stuff in plastic. So we're trying not to do plastic. Unfortunately, I think that we are still going to use a little bit of bubble wrap.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
Oh, did you hear that? That when my computer says, "Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger," in a British accent, that means we've sold a book. So that'll be our little. I spent too much time wiring that up today. I also don't know if it fires all the time. So anyway, sometimes it'll trigger that. If you buy a book, it'll say, "Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger." So I think we are going to use this. Unfortunately, I didn't want it, but I just don't want these things to arrive with any nicks or bumps or anything. I want it to get to you as pristine as possible. Oh.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
We got another one. Thank you. Oh.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
Coming in. So the script is working. So I think we are going to use some bubble wrap, but we have reduced most of the other.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger. Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
Look at those sales coming in. Thank you, you handsome buggers. We got a cheeky Brit narrating. So anyway, this was kind of part of the innovation, was to get rid of the plastic wrap
Thanks
and
for the sale, you handsome bugger.
and to flip to this craft paper that we printed on, which the printer had never done before, never thought about doing. And we do the thank you.
For the sale, you handsome bugger.
Very exciting. And so we do we're printing the barcodes here for the distributor, because normally we have to do barcode stickers and put the stickers on the package or on the books, and that's kind of annoying and ugly. So we thought, can we integrate the barcode into this wrapping in a way that's kind of cute, fun? And I think we did. So anyway, this is what you get. This is like kind of a Christmas present sort of thing. Looks like they did quite a. This is my first time opening one of these, actually. I haven't. So hopefully it looks okay.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
God. This British guy's going to get tired. Trying to undo this tape. I'm trying to do it nicely. You know, if I was my 10-year-old self would have torn this thing to shreds. So, whoa, there we go. So anyway, you get the craft paper off, and inside is the 3rd edition. And here you get a packet of photos. So anyway, you can do what you want with that. I'll throw that away. You get a packet of photos, and you get the book, which has a slightly different color printing on the cover. It's kind of this sort of 1970s kind of funky brown. And we're just doing 2 prints this time for the postcards. So 2 postcards, and instead of a plastic wrap for the postcards, which we used last time, we're using, again, this kind of craft recycled envelope, which I think just feels and looks so much nicer. So that's what you get in the package. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's it's a good package. I'm into it. And then the book. So the big, I guess you can say innovation, not really innovation, but the big change is with the binding. Actually, there's quite a few changes, significant changes. This Benia is one of the Kissa featured in the book. It's a book of matches they gave me. So let me open it and you can see. So first of all, it's just immediately apparent the binding is very different. So this is what we're using here is called a Swiss binding. So actually this entire spine is exposed. And what that allows for, a couple things. One, it just kind of looks kind of cool. But what it really allows for is, you can see with this cover already, just this wide opening, this wide, kind of natural. It just wants to stay open like that. And as people, and with the 1st and 2nd edition, we were trying to get. I went to them asking for kind of lay flat openings, and that was one of the reasons we're using a different printer. We're using a different binder. We've just upgraded everything about who we're working with and what they're capable of. And so this book just opens perfectly. It's just effortless sort of lay flat. And you get these spreads, especially, in the middle of a signature. You can see the threads here. Smithsonian. You'll see in a minute, I've gotten a documentary, some footage of showing off how the threading and the production of the threading happened. And it just feels fantastic. And, you know, it's like with these projects, you want it to get better and you want to work with better, more capable people as you progress.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
As you progress through making these things. And so the first edition was, you know, in some ways kind of an experimental edition, trying to figure out the form. We did a lot of as much prepping as we could beforehand.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
You know, you're going to run into issues, and you're going to learn along the way. And so by the time we got to this third edition, I just kind of feel like I knew exactly what I wanted, and I was able to articulate it in a way. And I was able to step up because we had done so well, thanks to your support. We had sold so many books, and you know, it had been a success. We, you know, did two printings. We sold. I mean, books like this don't sell like this normally. This is very aberrational. And so, you know, we're able to go to a printer and say, look, like, you get to be involved. They're excited. You get to be involved with kind of a cool project. They're not working on international projects like this here in Japan, for the most part. And, you know, it's not some random vanity publishing project that we're going to make 100 copies and I'll sell 12 and then that'll be the end of it. So I think that's exciting, and it gives you a lot of leverage as someone making books. So you can just see this book it just opens beautifully. It just feels... the glue on the spine feels fantastic. The binding is amazing. These were all hand bound. Each and every copy was hand bound. The second and first editions were machine bound. And I'll show you exactly how the hand binding happened. That'll be in the documentary. We'll do I have a rough cut of it so we can kind of watch that together. But no, this edition just feels amazing. And what's exciting about getting this edition to this place is that now I feel really confident about this format for other books going forward. I feel like we've dialed it in. I know who I want to work with. I trust them. They're good people. You know, that's important criteria for me. This book costs $95, not because I'm looking to like price gouge and I'm looking to, you know, extract as much value or profit out of this thing as possible. It costs $95 because it's an expensive book to produce. It's an expensive book. I didn't want to go to China. I didn't want to go to some other lower cost production country. I wanted to keep it all in Japan because I wanted to work with craftsmen and women who are at the top of their game, you know, and I think the first and second editions are amazing and they're incredible books. They had some flaws that were frustrating for me. And I'm just glad that, you know, I was able to kind of step up and connect with these other folks. And the people I'm working with now, I'm really blown away by. Just truly, it's exciting. So to me, what's great about this edition is not like, oh, now it's whatever, like the platonic version in terms of like production quality that I was aiming for, but it's that this is a format that I'm excited about. Like, this is cool. This book feels amazing now in a way that it felt amazing before, but now it's just, you know, there's very little compromise. And like this whole thing, it just, you know, it just kind of wants to be open in such a great way. And you can see one of the reasons we had to do a hand-bound edition was because I really wanted to dial in the overlap here. So one of the difficult design criteria that we were kind of yelling about, or I was being kind of obnoxious about, was having what I wanted was a 1 millimeter overhang between the body block and the covers, the cover boards. And to do that with machine binding is really difficult to just get that consistency. So in most books, you're going to see a 2 to 3 millimeter at least overhang, sometimes 4 or 5 millimeter overhang, because you're going to have a 2 or 3 millimeter deviation, you know, on either on the top or the side. And they need to kind of compensate for that, for those misses in the machine binding process. So this is it's truly special, truly kind of a cool, very special object that was made. Each one was made with care by hand. Can show you some of the differences here between the editions. One other thing about the third edition to make note of that I think is really important is the quality of the printing. Let me see if I can get some autofocus going on this guy. The quality of the printing, I know it's tough to see on a live stream, but the quality of the printing here has gone up. It's almost double the resolution. Let's see if we can get this working. It's essentially double the resolution of the previous edition in terms of halftone dot pattern frequency. And what we're using, the new presses are Heidelberg presses, and they're able to do what's called stochastic printing. So it's a stochastic halftone, and basically it's kind of difficult, almost impossible to see the halftone from this far away. Even if I get in close, there's almost not enough light to see it. Barely see, I mean, it looks like a photographic print. That's kind of where it's heading to in terms of quality. It's essentially a photographic print. You really start to see this in the photographs with extremely kind of fine detail. So like this guy's hat, for example, really kind of changed for me. This is one of the details that really kind of popped out. Man, this is not easy to do, is it? Maybe there's his eye, but you can kind of see the fact that there's almost no pattern there. There you go. You can see a little bit of the pattern. So I want to compare that. Let's compare that to second and third edition were printed on the exact same printers in the exact same way. And the same printer for the first and second edition, not same printer for the third edition. We shifted. Let's see, where is this guy? I've lost him. Here he is. So if we try to zoom in, so you can see the difference in, so this is a totally untouched book. You just saw me unwrap it. It's as it comes, it just wants to lie open. And then this is the second edition, and you got to really break the spine. You can crack it open. In fact, I recommend it, but it does feel a little more violent. You can also see if I can get rid of some of the glare. You can see the printing quality difference a little bit here as well. The quality of the color of the light, I think that's a significant, we kind of adjusted. There's this sort of red tone that was kind of getting overemphasized in the previous editions. We kind of adjusted around that. If we pop in here, let's see if we can look at his eyeball and see, you can see the difference in the halftone pattern. It's tough because of the light. Let's see if I can get this light. There we go. Get a little more light in here. There we go. It's a non-stochastic, non-random pattern, and so the resolution really is. You can see it on the nose there. The duotone pattern that is what comprises, an offset printing plate. So compared to, I realize this is kind of a weird thing to be obsessing over, but compared to this, just look at the quality. Look at the quality and the difference there.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
And yeah, it's just nice. I don't know, it's just really satisfying to see these images really pop in a way that I thought, they look great. The first and second edition looks amazing, but there's this almost like otherworldly 3D-ness to the third edition now. So that's exciting. That's interesting. I'm happy that we were able to achieve that. I'm grateful to the printer for for getting us to that place. Here are the editions sort of in reverse chron. Slightly different colors for each one, and slightly different sizes. This is one of the problems. This third edition is finally the true size that I was aiming for the entire time. This is the size that's true to the design files. The first edition, you can tell the size is a little bit off because they cut these full bleed pages with about 1.5 millimeters too much space on the sides. And so if you look at the third edition, there is no cut. It is a perfect border around the entire page, which is what that was what we were aiming for. It's tough to get. You know, it's like when you start doing these millimeter precise design things, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And then this one got cut a little too small. They had to chop it down too much. So this is the second edition is actually a little bit smaller than it should be. But you can see if I put the second on top of the first, the second is, it's tough to see because of the way the lens is, but you can kind of see it if I do this. The second is, it's a good millimeter shorter than the first. The first, basically, the person...
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
What makes it a little difficult is you're kind of juggling 3 or 4 different companies. You have the printer, and then they'll often organize, because they're not doing the cover or the binding or the stamping or the sewing, they'll work with a set of other companies. So the people that did the cover for the dummy book, they gave us one size, and then for the final books, they gave us a different size. So that wasn't great. And the third edition is finally, like I was saying, it's the true size. So the true size is in between the second and third edition. So you can see it here just slightly, this is the third, just slightly bigger than the second, but a little bit smaller than the first. I realize this is crazy to be obsessing over this stuff, but this drove me to madness, the way that this first edition was a little bit off size. It really, really felt nuts. But it's all the same cover material. It's the same boards. I think we did, on this third one, we may have gone up 1/10 of a millimeter in the board thickness on this to give it a little more heft because of the Swiss binding. We wanted the boards to kind of have a little more hold to them. And
thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
And we changed the end pages to a slightly heavier version of the same end paper. Again, just so the thing with Swiss binding is the book is only actually attached to the back of the boards here. It doesn't make it any less robust, and you're not going to run into this thing ripping off unless you really chuck it around like a maniac. But we did want it to just feel as solid as possible, and so we made a couple of those little changes. But it still has that beautiful kind of tactility, in-hand tactility that I think is wonderful. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this kind of soft hardcover. So that's that. That's the new one. That's the new one. Talk a little bit about, or let's do some Q&A. Let me check and see what's going on over here. I'm not, I've got my little iPad here. Is this, Mr. Balut asks, is this edition numbered or just plain? It's just plain. So I really want to make only the first editions numbered and signed. I think that's only fair to people who are supporting the first version of these books. It's like you don't know if these things are going to sell, and so my assumption is always, just one edition, and I want to make that one as good as possible. The fact that we're on a third edition here is a complete fluke. That was not something I anticipated at all. So that has just been a really interesting fluke. So no, only the first edition gets the signature and the numbering. Let's see here. Did I get the new binding inspiration from Off-Screen magazine? I noticed the same, and it's something pretty uncommon but very convenient. Thomas Hardy asks this. Yeah, Offscreen did make me aware of it for sure, but there's a few other Works That Work, which is the Typotech Peter Balick's magazine, also did Swiss. I worked with Rob Giampietro on some books for the Google Span conference, and we also kind of had an exposed Swiss style binding. So it's not uncommon of a certain kind of book, certain kind of sort of arty book in that world. So I was definitely aware of it, but yeah, Offscreen, they make really beautiful use of it. KT says barcode on the wrapping and Louvre stickers is a great idea. Thank you. Yeah, I think it works. It's kind of fun.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
Thomas asks, will my next book have the Swiss binding for the first edition? I think so.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
I think we will. I don't want to. The whole idea is to keep iterating, right? So if we figure out that, after.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
After, we'll see. But yes, definitely Swiss binding. Whether it's exposed Swiss binding, or we do a double, both sides attached to the cover. Lay flat style binding, we can iterate on that, so we'll see. But I like the Swiss binding. I think it's a nice design element, and it would be great because I do think of all these books I'm working on as being in a series. So yes, so you can kind of think of it as this progression, and hopefully, Lord willing, we get a few more books down the road. Hopefully we'll have some more innovations and they'll be even better produced and better made, in other ways. But honestly, this third edition, it, to me, feels like finally, this is what I've been aiming for a year, which I suppose isn't that long time. Matt says, thanks. Congrats. This is a winning format. Looking forward to the November walk. Yeah, I'm curious. November, we got to, I can't even think about that right now. Would my new printer take on jobs from overseas based writers, or do they only do domestic jobs? I would say only domestic. Like so many shops here, they don't speak English and they're good. But if you're not here, and you don't need to use a Japanese. I mean, the benefit is being able to sit down with people, to touch samples together, to bring a pile of books and have them bring a pile of books. We did a bunch of meetings in my garden here, with masks on and just books and on the tables out in the sunshine. Like that's the value of really working with a local printer. So I would say, for the most part, you're going to have a great printer somewhere nearby. So I would say hunt those out locally, or else work with a more internationally focused international printer. And actually, Offscreen, the printer they use, which also does fulfillment, is a pretty good option. I was looking at working with them actually 2 years ago. We started talking about doing something together, but I ended up going in my own direction here. Seems that Japanese printers are the only craftspeople that might have the patience and skills to make such a beautiful book. No, not really. I mean, Italians make amazing books, beautiful, gorgeous, phenomenal books. Germans make amazing books. Americans can make amazing books. I think a lot. What's really sad about, I think, the American printing industry is how much, and I suppose that you could say this about a lot of American things, is how much of it has moved abroad, how much of that market China has usurped, essentially. It's just so much cheaper to produce there. It's tough to compete. But I do think there are some still super high quality American printers working out there. But yeah, in Japan, there's an even next higher level of binders that I want to work with that are individuals, and it's entirely hand bound, hand sewn. So you basically print the book, and then you get it to these people and you have to give them like a year, basically book them a year in advance. Excuse me. Each book it's like $100 to bind or something, and you kind of go to them as like a shaman of binding, and then they kind of think about what kind of binding you should use and how best to align with the spirit of the book or whatever. But they're these Japanese people who these folks in these workshops that just do incredible stuff. So that's kind of my next level I want to unlock. Those books will be prohibitively expensive for this kind of market. I think that this is really an ideal space that we're getting to right here, which is $95 for a book. That's a lot for a book, but I think for this kind of book, it's actually exactly probably what it should cost, considering the work and energy and time and everything being put into it. I think it's actually a very fair price. And the reason I give the big discounts to the yearly members is that I see the membership program as an enabling sort of entity that makes these books possible. And so I see it as prepayment essentially. So I'm happy to give a big discount to the yearly members who are kind of doing a prepayment. So we'll see. I'd like to unlock that next level, and maybe do editions of like maybe 30 or 40. And then those books, I don't know what they would sell for, $500, $600, $1,000, something like that. Yeah, Stidle is amazing. They do amazing work. But look at MacBooks. Look at where MacBooks. England has some great printers as well. Mac produces gorgeous, gorgeous books, for sure. So Bernadette K asks, I'd love to see more about the hand binding process, logistics and economics of doing it at the scale of this printing. Yeah, okay, so why don't we watch the documentary? That's probably like a good way to segue into more Q&A. So let's see here. Let me bring this sucker up. Boom. Final cut, documentary mode. I got this really rough cut. And I've got this kind of like voiceover. I'll turn it off, but I'll let you hear. I did a rough take last night. I rewrote it. I've got a whole new script, and I'll redo it. But you kind of see what I'm going for here. Hi, I'm Craig Mod, and I'm the author of Kissa by Kissa. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to go. So that sort of thing, but a little more on top of it. Let's see here. Let me turn down the voiceover. Boop. Get rid of that. And we'll just go through and play the doc, and I'll give you a live voiceover. I will voice over it in real time. Crazy, I know. So here we go. We got some futuristic background music. I found kind of this hypnotic loop, and it keeps saying musicbed.com because I haven't bought the music yet. So here we are zooming in. All right, we got three things we're going to investigate. Printing is the first one. Here we are in Matsumoto, Nagano, Japan. One of my favorite prefectures. Amazing, beautiful prefecture. I'm here with Fujiwara-san. Fujiwara-san is a third generation Fujiwara of this printer. His grandmother actually started the company, I think. I have that right. And this is Fujiwara Jr. And it's just a beautiful, clean, amazing printing space. So he opened this up for us. I had 3 hours of sleep going into this. I was about to die. So here are the operators. I just couldn't fall. I just had crazy insomnia the night before. I get so nervous because what if it's screwed up? So here are the operators prepping. Push out one of the signatures. So each signature, 8 pages. Kissa by Kissa is 16 signatures. Here's one of the inks, CMYK, 4 inks. Here's the UV drying. It kind of dries. Here's basically they're replacing one of the offset plates. So each plate is a signature. And like I said, we have 16 signatures, 16 plates, 16 times 4, 1 plate for each color, CMYK, cyan, yellow, magenta, black. And that's how offset printing works. And here's the operator grabbing. Got to control the humidity, very important. Here he is. He grabs a random sheet from one of the signature prints, and he's basically checking ink saturation here, and he's checking against the test print to make sure things are aligned properly. So making sure each of the plates has proper alignment so that the colors are appearing as they should appear. If one plate is off by a millimeter, then those dots are all going to be interfering. The dots are going to be off, the colors are going to be wrong. You're not going to get the right prints. So that's what this guy's checking. Here he is pulling one of the plates out, and Fujiwara-san was holding it up for us. And here I am. I was basically in that little office in the back all morning. I was there for like 5 or 6 hours, checking every signature as it came out, and basically checking against the second edition and third edition. And here I am. I'm grabbing essentially a loop, one of these guys, but sort of a pen-shaped one. Just to, again, checking the registration, checking things like making sure all the text is printed only in K. So if the data is given to the printers in the wrong format, you actually end up with sort of RGB colors, CMYK colors, making up the blacks, which you don't want. You want K to be K, and so the text you want to make sure is not composed of different colors. You want to make sure the text is only coming from that K plate. And so you can kind of look in close and make sure that that's what's happening. And actually in the first edition, the first signature that went through the machines, I was there, they had screwed up the data. It was the wrong data for the text. It wasn't K, it was RGB. It becomes a little fuzzier. It's not as sharp. It's not as easy to read. It's very, you wouldn't notice it. Like if you bought the book, you wouldn't get mad. You wouldn't go, oh my God, this K is not the K. It'd be really, it wouldn't be something you'd consciously recognize, but you have to believe these details are kind of felt. And that was one of the indications that maybe this printer, looking back on it, they weren't readily eager to fix that mistake. I kind of had to say, hey, we're going to throw this signature away. They just printed the whole thing, one of the signatures. So they had to throw away 1/16 of the book. We wanted to get that right, recycle it. So anyway, here I am. I basically have no concerns with this. I'm sort of just going through the motions. I don't really think that there's much to check, but they were really excited for me to check. So I was like, I will check for you. And then here we are heading up to Saitama. This was actually filmed last year from the first edition. We didn't, because of COVID started peaking again right around when we were here in Japan, when we were about to do all of our filming. So we kind of cut it back. But this is the signature song. And this is actually quite rare in Japan. Most books in Japan, even high-end books, aren't sewn. It's just chopped and cold glued, and that's it. So I actually took some effort to find a machine that could do this. I just thought it was such a beautiful, amazing machine that I kind of filmed a bunch of it. And that factory was right along the Sumida River up in Saitama. Then we head back to Tokyo. And our final stop is the bindery. And here, Bernadette, you will see exactly what they did to bind this book. And bindery is in a neighborhood called Kagurazaka, one of my favorites in Tokyo. Actually has a long history with printers. Toppan and Dai Nippon Insatsu, two of the biggest printers in Japan, are located in the area. But it's just a beautiful, amazing area. Really wonderful. So here is the binder in a very nondescript building. And this is Mochizuki-san the second generation binder. His dad started this business. His dad trained in Nagano and then came back to Tokyo to open this bindery. So here's the first jig. And here they are. They're taking basically a glued end paper and they're applying the first end paper to the cover. So the jig makes for a perfect 1mm alignment both on the inner cover and, as you'll see, on the outer hang of the cover. So our printer Fujiwara was just freaking out because he had never seen a binder do this before. And they have all these fancy machines in the background, but so they rigged the paper cutter to be a pressure machine, and they use this to ensure even application of all the sticking. So perfect application. Then it's scored by hand. This is just like Fujiwara-san came with us and he was just like, oh my god. So every single cover they did this for, 1,000 of these. So you end up with this sort of scored by hand, prepped cover. Now here's the body block with another sheet of end paper bound in that body block, sewn in there, glued in there actually. And then here's the second jig, and and that applies the body block to the cover itself. And there you go. It's a perfect millimeter border because of that handmade jig. And this is we're figuring out exactly how do we put these photos in, what order to put them in. You know, these guys did all of this packing. It's not a machine packing it. It's not, you know, a machine binding. This is we're basically testing out how to wrap it. And then I just thought this was kind of a cute, weird little photo in the corner. And these two guys, Mochizuki-san and Fujiwara-san, are the kind of artisans behind making this final thing possible. And to end it, we got a nice little slow-mo of the book coming in, boom, slow-mo book, and then some nice, delicious slow-mo paged flapping, because you need some good low depth of field page flapping. And that's it. So that's the rough cut of this little doc. I've still got to go and color correct and color grade.
Thanks for the sale, you handsome bugger.
Ooh. And color correct, grade, clean it up, tighten up the cuts. It's like 8 minutes long right now. It doesn't need to be 8 minutes long, but that's that. Clean it up, get it all ready, and we can put that out there in the world. Got to re-record the voiceover, do some kind of voiceover, but that is that. I think that's hopefully fulfills the promise of I was taught. You know, I was supposed to produce a production video last year, and I hope that that will fulfill that promise. Let me see here. Oops. Trying to bring this video up here so I can. There we go. Closer to you guys. Let me get some. Let me get the questions up here as well. So Matt Romaine asks, do they do morning calisthenics in the factories? I don't know, but I'll ask. They might. They all wear their jumpsuits. So if anyone has any questions, we can go into kind of Q&A mode now. And I'm happy to hold books up and show you stuff and whatnot. Let me get the box. So talk a little bit about this guy. So the new box is a little simpler than the old box in that it's just 2 pieces of cardboard. The old box was actually 3, so it was this. There was no middle here. The 2 flaps were their own pieces of cardboard, and then they would fold in, and then so this is kind of, this hugs the book to keep it from moving. You want to be essentially floating in this space. So you have this buffer zone here, so that the sides of the book aren't in contact with anything. And then this closes, and you have the nice rip strip here that I think is a little bit better than before. It's hard speccing this stuff, man. Getting the boxes dialed in. You'd be surprised. Like, people, man, the email thread to get this box made is literally hundreds of emails long, and I had to produce Figma diagrams and phone calls. I mean, good Lord, it's a lot of work. And then they printed the wrong. We sent them PDFs. We sent them PDFs of the final data, and then I sent them like JPEGs or PNGs of examples of how the data is supposed to look on the boxes. And this thing here, the dots, that's not supposed to be. That was on the example to show that this is where the rip strip is meant to go. And they took the PNGs and they made final editions out of those. And these things aren't aligned in the right place. They're up too high. And so anyway, we caught them after they had only done like 500. So there'll be 500 special boxes with this weird rip strip thing going on here. So if you get one of those, hold on to that. You can sell that for pennies on the dollar. But this is the new one. And then, last minute issue with the box. We don't have a sticky thing on the inner. So the old box had a strip here for taping and a strip over here for taping. I've ripped that strip off, so that's gone now. Or it's right here. It's stuck on there. So the strip for taping here, and then you close it, and then you tape it. We thought that was superfluous because if you close it, and then if you just do this tight enough, it's fine. You don't need to tape. Didn't need that tape on the inside, the plastic or whatever, extra junk. Another thing for the packagers, we're always trying to minimize the number of things people have to do, make it easier for the packers. And lo and behold, I had them send me a test with the book in it. I did, they sent me samples, and I did my own tests at home. I'd pack it up, and I packed it up, tight. I really tightened this outer layer on here. And yeah, if you do it super tight with the outer layer, the inner, you don't need the extra tape on the inner. But it turns out in the factory, in the distributor, they're not going to do it maybe that as tight as you would do it. So they do it not super loose, but they could do it a little bit tighter. And it turns out that if you don't do it super duper tight, this just turns into a box. These things end up, the inner bits, this is so dumb. And this is why I test everything. It's like, oh, we've got it fine, but send me a test copy anyway, and then you find out these things. And so you end up with basically the sides of the box not being in and hugging, but out, and this thing just becomes a box in and of itself. And then the book can kind of shimmy sham around in there, and then it's just a box. That's not, could have just bought a box. This costs money to make this thing. It's a custom box. It's kind of silly. So that was like a last minute, oh my God. So we are having them now. I did an example. I said, close this tight and slap some tape on there. And then the box maker is retrofitting some extra tape on the rest of the boxes. But that's a good example of, you think you're done. You think you got it all dialed in. Then you get the test that is supposed to be flawless, and you can't imagine what could be wrong with it. It's not good. Something's wrong with it. So that was stressful. But thankfully I have my assistant who's kind of handling a lot of the back and forth. And when it's a little stressful, I can just hop on a call and go, ah, and we can kind of go make that noise together and then fix it. So easy peasy. Da-da-da. So if anyone has any other questions about production, anything, life, production, logistics, the new book, send them on in. Thank you, Gen. Gen says he's going to grab some more copies. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited that there are, you know, almost 700 people or more than 700 people on that waiting list. Um, I don't think 700 people are going to buy it instantly. I think a lot of people, just kind of hop on that on a whim, and they don't think it's going to be a $95 book, perhaps, plus shipping. But that's the cost. So I can talk for a second about costs there. The pricing has worked out really well. I mean, it's a fair price. It has allowed us, and by us I mean me, not to feel crushed by super duper crazy low margins. And I was able to take some of that flexibility that came with the book selling so quickly, both editions, and invest that again in being able to go to a bigger, better printer. This new edition costs a bit more to produce. It's a few more dollars a book than the second or first editions, but I think the quality increase is, orders of magnitude higher. And the what's really important for me too is making sure I'm working with people that are running companies that are ethical, that have non abusive work environments, that treat everyone kind of equally well. Sorry, I'm not being very articulate, but basically companies that you go to, you visit, you go to the warehouse, and it just feels like a good place to be, and that the workers are excited and they're happy to be there. And I can say now with all the people I'm working with that that's true. And these are good people. So these are good people working on this. I want to support them. The binder is gone crazy on social media about this book, about this project. He's so psyched to be involved. And I want, if anyone in Japan wants to work with them, let me know. I'm happy to pass along the details in Japan. They don't speak any English, but the more work we can send to them, the better. And it just feels really good. I think that's more and more important for us to focus on, is making sure that the people we're employing and that we're employing to employ other people are operating at high ethical standards. And I can say pretty confidently that this book, has been touched by a couple dozen people, and they've been a couple dozen fairly compensated people with good health insurance and working in healthy environments. So, that's cool. That feels really good. And by keeping our price point where it is, which obviously didn't hurt sales, we sold out, but we're not looking to gouge. I'm not looking to do $200 editions. Want to make it as accessible as possible. I think it's worked out really well. So I'm glad that we priced it where we did, and it feels great. And that kind of pricing allows us to work with great people. So thank you. It's really an honor to be able to do that. So Marcus asks about production of ArtSpace Tokyo versus now. Yeah, ArtSpace Tokyo was the first book. This is back in 2010. First issue of that was actually 2017. And I worked with my old printer that I've been working with on a number of books with the old press that I was involved with out here. And basically, we had a really low price point we were trying to hit. And that was kind of predicated because of our distributor in the US didn't want us to make books that cost more than like $30. So I was using kind of a non top tier printer in Japan, but the CEO of the printing company was a small company. Was a super great guy. He was like an ex-tennis pro, and he was just a good guy, like a really go-getter dude, like a real dude. He was a real dude or duty dude driving around in an Audi TT and would take me all over the place. And we, shot photos and stuff of production of Art Space Tokyo and whatnot. He was a really great guy, but they were mainly producing like CSR reports for companies and stuff like that. So like they didn't work on, and it was the same printer that did Koyabound as well. I went back to Koihiyama-san. I went back to him and was like, hey, we kind of want to knock this book out. Can you help us? And, we just didn't bake into the schedule a ton of time to learn about the processes or to think about options, really. I mean, and that's kind of one of the weird blessings of COVID is like last year I just found myself with this schedule that was eviscerated by the pandemic, and I could lean into, and the printer last year that I was working with was, kind of, they had lost a bunch of work and they had a bunch of extra time. So we were able to like kind of lean into it, like almost like printing grad school. So I would say that my knowledge of printing and print techniques and binding techniques and what to look out for and how to talk to printers and how to talk to binders has gone from, maybe a 3 out of 10 to like a 6 or 7. I just feel infinitely more kind of aware of what's available and how to talk to these people. So I'd say that, that's just a big change from Art Space Tokyo, where I was sort of overwhelmed when I made Art Space Tokyo. This is one of the hilarious things I think back on. I remember making Art Space Tokyo and designing it and getting towards the end of the design. And I met up with Ian Lynham here in Tokyo. We had pizza. I remember exactly where we had pizza. And I showed him the design. Maybe I printed some of the designs out, some of the chapters out. We were eating pizza, Il Pacione, something like that. That's the name of the place over near the Coca-Cola building, near in between Nishi Azabu and Shibuya, the back of Shibuya, which is now kind of like not the back anymore. It used to be a nothingness. Now you got all the stuff going on there, the stream and whatnot. And we're there eating pizza. This is 2007. I was losing my mind. I was in love, but totally lost my mind and was going crazy and trying to produce this book. And my co-author editor, Ashley Rollins, was living in my apartment with me. And I was living in an apartment that was literally smaller than this bedroom. That was about the size of my closet that's behind that wall. And Ashley was just living there. We were 2 tons on the ground, filled up the whole space. We'd work till 3 a.m. and then watch Jon Stewart Daily Show episodes on Comedy Central, and then go to bed and then wake up and make soy lattes in my tiny 1-burner kitchen and losing my mind. And I remember bringing the design files to the pizzeria, and Ian's there, and I'm, hey Ian, how you doing, man? Let's eat some pizza here. Check out the design. What do you think? And he goes, oh, yeah, it's looking good, but yeah, you got to kern some of these titles on the chapter titles and whatnot. And I remember thinking, I even said, what? You got to kern you got to kern all the titles? Like I'm a very self-taught book designer. And I was just kind of under the impression, it hadn't even occurred to me that you would kern the titles of the chapters. I mean, kern the title of the cover of the book, but the titles of the chapters even, I hadn't thought about that. So that's how kind of regressive my knowledge of book design. But I think the general sense and thrust of it was great. And I think the design of Art Space Tokyo is still phenomenal. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And I would actually, if I thought there was an audience for it, and if it wasn't like all out of date, I would love to redo it in this new format. I think it would be such a wonderful, amazing book, reprinted, I think at the same size, but with this binding on these papers, oh man, it would just sing. It would be so, so phenomenal. So anyway, thanks for buying Art Space Tokyo. We've got a few copies of that, by the way, still available in the shop. And Art Space Tokyo, those copies that are left in the shop, if you are an institution or a library or a nonprofit, educational, some kind of, I will send you a copy of that for free. You just have to pay for shipping. So I'll give you a free code to get the book for free, and it's like $20 shipping. Sorry, that's the best we can do. But I'm happy to give you a 100% off code for that if you work for one of those agencies. One of our goals was to just get these books, these Art Space Tokyos, into as many institutions around the world as possible. And we have done. I think there's about 50 universities and libraries that reached out to us when I started that program a couple months ago. So if you're one of those, if you're listening, if you know one that may want a copy of this for their archives, it is, I think, anthropologically an interesting document about that really does capture the gestalt of the Tokyo art scene in the knots, as they say, in the knots. Thomas says, I love how much work and dedication has been put into the production, from the book to the whole package. Thanks for that. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to work on this stuff like this. I think if you're going to make a book today, I think these are good stakes in the ground to put there, and I'm happy, and I hope it acts as an archetype. I hope other people are able to build off this, learn from this. And Marcus says, worker happiness reflects in the quality of the production, the products. Thanks for considering the ethical standards. Yeah, I think it's important. Man, every time I order something from Uber Eats, I feel so bad. And then I have to tip. Here in Japan, it's just so weird having to tip, but I'm just like, oh, all right, here's 20. I just feel like tipping like 25% is probably, you're getting to what the person should be getting for the work they're doing. Here in Japan, a little different because they do have health insurance, whereas in America, probably not. So if anyone has any other questions, comments, notes, I'm happy to hang out for a little bit longer. Chat about book stuff. I was trying to think. Yeah, my goal for the next book was to be printing right now, which is, that was a crazy goal. But it's good to have insane goals to kind of push you forward, push you along. That, holy moly, no, that's not going to happen. So the draft is coming along. Thanks to everyone who followed. There's like 350 people on the Nightingale and Gale newsletter. I love writing that. It's such a kick in the tush, writing that thing. And I think diaries are actually around, projects are kind of powerful. And so this is a little bit of a diary talking about that, stepping through the process. And, I think that's good to have. I don't know where it's going to be. I mean, I do think there is a book in there. So that feels good. I don't know if I'm going to know the book entirely in the next 2 weeks. The good thing is the next 2 weeks are just wide open working on that book. Just for the most part, full time. Now that this is done, I'll do some promotional stuff, getting the documentary cleaned up, getting that. That's kind of fun extra work. But I have basically 2 kind of wide weeks to just read and write around this next book. And I don't know where it's going to be at the end, but I'm excited to see where it ends up. And I'm excited to get it out in the world eventually. My other goal was then to kind of like get it to printing in November. I think that's also going to be really tough. I think it'll be like an early next year book. My goal was to do a book a year, and I think a book I think you can do a book a year, but we'll see. I don't know. Some books are going to go faster than others. But I feel like this is going to be a book every 18 months will be eminently doable. And a book a year is a little trickier. I know a lot of people do it, but with the walking and the making documentaries and all this other crap I'm doing, it kind of gets in the way a little bit. What do I read these days? And some favorite art books. I mean, favorite art books, the Mac Books is like probably one of my favorite publishers today. A lot of what they're doing is just killer, just really, really beautiful. And for what I'm reading these days, it's mainly like I wrote in the Nightingale and Gale issue yesterday. I'm mainly reading stuff that I'm trying to get me kind of activated and inspired for this book that I'm currently working on. And so I'm reading Annie Dillard, and I'm reading Lydia Davis. I'm reading her short stories, and I'm reading her essays about her work and other people's work. So kind of like meta discussions of doing the work. I'm reading Alex Chee's stuff, his essays, his novels. I'm reading, oh God, what's his name? There's a couple names in that. I swear to God, I have like face blindness. I have name blindness with these people. Jack Gilbert, the poet. I love his stuff. There's a tone, there's a vibe to Jack Gilbert's stuff that really gets me. Going through some Lynn Tillman essays. I think Lynn, just basically Michael Ondaatje coming through Slaughter. Books that are somewhat non-traditional, not books that are like so wacky that they're inaccessible, but books that are just kind of, pushing a little bit. Sebald, what can you do? What can you bring into the genre, into the experience of a book? That's the sort of stuff that I'm looking at and waking up and kind of trying to infuse my brain with that. Pre-infusion for the coffee nerds, kind of do a book pre-infusion, and then usually there's this point where you just have to write. The impulse to write or edit is so strong, you just have to do it. So a lot of old books, not too many new books. I mean, old in the sense of, not books of the last 10 years. So books, Annie and Lydia and Lynn are all in their 70s. Ondaatje, I think, is in his 70s. Alex Chee is in his 50s, maybe. Ocean Vuong, his new book's coming out. I'm actually excited. He's like one of the only sort of like new. Alex Chee's stuff is new. Ocean Vuong would also be kind of a new author. Dennis Johnson's stuff really gets me excited. His stuff is, 10, 20, 30 years old. I just finished, kind of randomly, Dave Eggers' The Monk of Mocha. Just a nonfiction, really straightforward nonfiction book that was great. I really liked it. I don't know. I don't know if I had the right takeaway from it, which was that coffee's probably not worth risking your life to this degree for, but it's a crazy story about this, this young guy, Yemenese guy in San Francisco in the Tenderloin, who is inspired to revitalize Yemen coffee, the Yemen coffee world. And some wild stuff happens, Civil War stuff, and dealing with mega difficult logistics, and he ends up producing some pretty good Yemen coffees. And I realized I've never had a Yemen coffee, and probably because it's so expensive. It's like the $16 cups of coffee at Blue Bottle are the Yemen coffee. And now, having read this, and this kind of ties in with ethical standards, making sure people are paid properly. His whole thing was like, with this third wave / fourth wave super specialty coffee, small batch farming, you can cut out the middlemen, you can get rid of the loan sharks, you can get rid of the commodities pricing, and you can move into, which books are kind of essentially commodities priced, you can move into specialty pricing, which allows for much greater levels of sustainability in the chain, and a simplification of the chain as well. So it's kind of an exciting book to just think about, like, what it takes to get a bean into your grinder in the morning, to infuse it and get that cup of coffee out. I will never look at my cup of coffee the same way again, ever. And Monk of Mocha, it's pretty good. It was a page turner. And Dave Eggers is just he's a good writer. His stuff inspired me when I was younger. Dave Eggers' heartbreaking work of staggering genius was a huge inspiration. Design-wise, McSweeney's, the design work McSweeney's did, a lot of it was Dave's work. It's kind of extremely envy-inducing. You're not allowed to be both such a great writer and a great designer. He is. Yeah, he's done a lot of cool nonfiction stuff. I know, and he's extremely offline. He's a big part of Dave's thing is to be disconnected, which I think is smart. Most people who are productive aren't active on social media. That's pretty common. Let's see here. Are you a fan of any independent small magazines? I could see you thinking of some of them are cool, like Off 2 magazine or Record magazine. I don't really. What did I get? I got some magazine that's produced in Kyoto. It starts with an S, I think. Stories, I think it's called. Storied, which is pretty cool. New small indie magazine. I love them. I don't keep track of them though. But when I find them, I order them. I ordered a couple. The Works That Work by Peter Balick is a gorgeous. That's a killer indie magazine. That's a real work of art. If you have any recommendations, send them over, please. Let's see. It's a while ago I read on your website that you're working on a novel for a long time. Is that still going on? May we have a glimpse of the synopsis? Absolutely not. You did not get a glimpse of the synopsis. No way. Yeah, is it still going on? I mean, I think the last time I touched it was 3.5 years ago. I touched it a few months ago. I did a Ridgeline. That was a chapter from the novel that I kind of reworked for Ridgeline. I want to go back to it. I do not think it's dead or worthless. I think I have grown and learned so much from it. I'll say the novel is present in kind of everything I write, especially anytime I start writing about identity related stuff. I say the novel is very present, around adoption and family and stuff like that. I want to go back to it. And this current book process that I'm doing kind of like the daily diary around, is instructive. And what I think I will do once I get this next book out, and then I have the third book in this Walk Japan series that I want to do relatively quickly because it's about a walk I did last year about the Tokaido. I want to get that one done. And then after that, I think I will do like a month back to the novel, and we'll just see where we can take it. And I think photography may play a different role in it. I think it'll expand in different ways. It may be simplified. But there's definitely something there, and I want to go back to it. And I feel like I have the chops finally to do it justice in a way that I didn't have. I started that novel 10 years ago, this December 3rd, basically. That was when I got my first residency. On a whim, I'd never applied to a residence before. I applied on a whim to McDowell. I got into McDowell. It's the hardest residency to get into, one of the oldest in the world, oldest in America, one of the first writing residencies. I don't know how I got in, complete fluke. I've applied since then like 4 more times, rejected every time. But being there and meeting the people there, that really started it all. And I didn't go with the intention of working on a novel, but that's what came out of it. And it has evolved greatly since that time. It'll be better. It is better than it was then. And there's a couple of chapters that really, they're good. They're good chapters. I think a month with it, I think it could be something. Let's see. Dune is coming out. Have you read it? Are you planning to go? I did not grow up in a very literate definitely not a literary environment, but not even a really literate environment. I do not have memories of people around me reading books growing up. So I was not infused with that kind of sci-fi, early teens sci-fi, and not that Dune is like an early teens book, but like I think there's a certain kind of man who's like 40 who grew up with a number of sci-fi books I think Jake, Lord of the Rings is probably one of them as well. Fantasy, not sci-fi, no. And yeah, Dune also just, it never connected with me. So no, I haven't read it. I feel like I should. But when I'm in this kind of writing mode, when I'm working on a book, I really want to stick to that strong infusion of the voices that are most aligned with what I'm aiming for. And so I should do like a month off at some point, take a true vacation where I just read like Lord of the Rings, Dune, Harry Potter, the My Best Friend trilogy. I just like, these are all books that I don't think, these aren't the kinds of books I want to write, and they aren't the kind of tone that I want to write in or the kind of voice I want to have. But I should probably go live in those worlds and just be like, the Monk of Mocha is a great example. Like, there's nothing about the Monk of Mocha that to me is archetypical, but Dave just tells a great linear, straight story. Boom, boom, boom. In the beginning, it starts like a couple months ahead and then kind of flashes back. But like, for the most part, straight, boom, here it is, clear, elegantly written, solid. But I don't read Monk of Mocha and need to run over to my computer and start writing, or open the notebook and start writing down sentences because something's being activated. So I've not read Dune, but maybe I will soon. So if there's any other questions, can hang out for another like 5 minutes. I'm starting to fade. These little events are always so weird because you're kind of all alone, and then I can't hear any of your voices. I can't wait to do a book launch in person again. I really want to do some events in Tokyo when stuff becomes eventable, especially international, and people can come over. I want to do some great events. I want to get a Japanese edition of Kissa by Kissa out. All sorts of things. Yeah, that's the other thing, is like with this new format, I want to get the Japanese edition done. Airflow, pretty good airflow. I've actually toned down the airflow for the moment in here, so there wouldn't be as much background noise airflow. But downstairs, it's just so wonderful, the flow. It's and the humidity's so low, so it can just be pure airflow right now. You don't need the AC on. It's really, really wonderful. Blessed right now with airflow, good airflow. Any other books anyone has to recommend? Shoot them in the chat. I have great lighting going on in this room. Thank you. Totally unintentional. This is, I should show you, this looks crazy. Let me take a picture. I'll give you a little desktop. This looks it's complete insanity. Here's what it looks like, and I'll show you the photo. And come on. This is what the setup looks like. So that's got one big key light here, another fill light there. I've got the overhead kind of light, totally different light temperature, not ideal. And then I got a Isamu Noguchi guy back down there. And then that's actually also a design classic that I got on a big discount. I forget who the designer is, but it's a classic. Thanks, Thomas, for hanging out. Marcus asks if I would translate Kissa by Kissa myself. I would work closely with a translator. I'm definitely not capable of translating into Japanese that would be at the level of my English for sure. I could do kind of a funky, maybe middle, like a young adult adventure in Japanese, as long as the language was constrained in that way. But no, I've actually talked with a translator poet friend of mine about doing a collaboration, because I would love to. The book is short enough. It's only like 13,000 words. You could translate that in not too long. And then we would sit down for a weekend. You'd come over here, stay over, And we would basically just spend 8 hours a day for a couple days going line by line through the book, formalizing what I meant exactly, and then finding the right analogs in Japanese for that and making sure the tone is right. And I think we could do an amazing translation. So I'm excited to do that at some point. Maybe that'll be kind of a Christmas activity that we can knock out together, which I think would be fun. But no, I mean, that's one of the things I've kind of learned is like hire or work with people who are better at the thing than you are, you know. I mean, and hiring the assistant earlier this year has been one of the biggest, I think, life changes, positive life changes for me. And that's been great. Michael, thank you. Thanks for the otskare. Thanks for hanging out. I'll call you after. But that delegation, the assistant delegation, and just having them deal with a lot of kind of like back and forth has been huge. So good. So good. I think about where I was like 2 years ago. 3 years ago. I think about where I was 3 years ago compared to now. 3 years ago, I didn't have a membership program. I didn't have regular income that was dependable. It had been years since I'd produced a book. I wasn't writing regularly in a way that excited me. I was beholden to magazines and other publishers to try to get my work into the world. I was banging my head against a lot of walls. I was failing at a bunch of stuff. That was 3 years ago. And, in the last 3 years, we started special projects, Explorers Club, special projects, started special projects. There's now enough people that are on special projects that alone totally covers all costs of living, all production costs of like equipment and stuff like that. It's crazy. It's really amazing. And then putting this book together, I'd never gone on a walk longer than like 8 days 3 years ago. And in the last 3 years, I've done 3 walks that are all over 30 days long. That's crazy. It's just like, I feel like in terms of craft and kind of leaning into exploring what this means to do these walks and to be rigorous about the photography and be rigorous about the writing. And now, I've published 130 ridgelines and 40 rodents or whatever in the last 3 years, plus the pop-up newsletters, plus the stuff I'm doing right now. It's crazy to think about how far this work and what I'm working on has come, and that's exciting. I don't know. I can't think of a 3-year period where I've kind of had more, and it's all been very scary, terrifying. Truly. I mean, 3 years ago, I was in a very, very dark, scary place. And all these things have felt like pretty big leaps. And I'd say for the first time in a long, long time, I feel like we're getting stuff kind of dialed in a little bit. So that feels really good. So anyway, thank you for all your support. Orders that are coming in now, those will go out on Tuesday, and you'll get emails from DHL, and those books will be arriving Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as long as COVID stuff isn't disrupting shipping in your part of the world. But shipments tend to arrive pretty quickly. Thank you for your support and for hanging out. I love this, and I look forward to producing this next book. I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be different and special and a lot of fun. I think you're gonna love it, and wouldn't be possible without your help. So thank you all. Have a wonderful Sunday, and folks in Japan, enjoy your day off tomorrow. It is Old Person Day. Happy Old Person. If you're an old person, go get some high fives from young people. It's Respect for the Old People Day. Thank you, David Katie. And thank you, Robert, for the purchase. There's a little bit of delay. So I'm waiting to see if there's any other greetings I should respond to. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna close this down. Thanks all, and we'll see you on the newsletters. Good night.